Hey, what's up everybody? It's Clint from Marauder Tactical Group. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the Make Ready procedure. Since the beginning of mankind, warrior cultures have had various ways to prepare themselves for battle. These were rituals that had been passed down through time, and what they did is they allowed warriors to be physically and mentally ready to step off into the battlefield. Today, we've adopted these Make Ready rituals, if you will, but we call it the Make Ready procedure. Myself, as a tactical medic on 2 SWAT teams, can personally tell you that before we step off onto any raid or any kind of call out, we will always get online and do these procedures just to make sure that everybody on the team is on the same page and that we're all ready to go and we're all ready to do the task that needs to be done. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we do it. This is just specifically how our team does it. This is our SOPs. I'm not saying this is the way it needs to be done. I'm just saying this is how we do it. First thing I want to do is I want to check my personal protective equipment, right? So first thing I want to look at is my eye protection. Do I have eye protection on? Sometimes you'd be surprised. You forgot to put on your glasses. You step online, you're like, oh, that's not good. So first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we have our eye protection on. And we want to make sure that we have our ear protection. Eyes and ears, good to go. Then what I want to do is start at the top of my helmet and I'm going to work my way down. At this time, I might check my lights. Lights are good, batteries are good there. I might check any kind of signal device I have on top of my head. I'll come down to my nods. I'll bring my nods down. I'll turn those on, adjust them, get them to where I can see good. Make sure everything's working there, make sure batteries are on point. And then I'm going to start working my way down from there, okay? So I'm going to go to my armor. Make sure that I have my armor on, make sure my cummerbund is secured properly. I'm going to make sure that everything here is where it needs to be. It's not hanging off of me. It feels really good. It's not loose, dangling, making any kind of noise. Also, when we talk about personal protective equipment, we got to talk about our medical stuff, right? So my job as the medical provider on the team is to make sure that I'm carrying medical gear, but I also have to provide medical gear for myself personally, and so should everybody else on the team. This means a personal IFAK. Mine happens to be here in front of me. I'll check that. I'll make sure it's zipped up, make sure that the components aren't falling out the side. I'm also going to make sure that the tourniquet is secured and that I can reach it with both hands. I'll check any other tourniquets I have on my person, and then I'll go around to the back and I'll make sure that my personal IFAK back here is squared away, good to go. And I also have a tourniquet and other components that I need for any kind of medical care on target. Once I've confirm that all these things are good, I'm going to start moving on to my team gear, right? First thing we want to check when we're checking team gear, we want to turn on our radio. So we'll turn the radio on. We'll go ahead and plug in our down leads. We'll do a quick radio check, make sure that everybody's on the same channel, make sure that we all understand where everybody's at. If anybody's having any problems with the radios, we'll go ahead and address that issue right now and get that out of the way. Once that's been taken care of, we're going to move on to our personal roles. Like again, as a medic, my personal role for the team is to provide medical care. As you can see, I'm wearing a medical bag. This medical bag is the team bag. This carries advanced life-saving equipment that I can employ on target. So I need to make sure that that's all there. First of all, I need to make sure that it's connected. I need to make sure that everything is squared away and that it's not going anywhere and that it's easy to access by myself and the rest of the team if the case needs to be. The only other thing that we need to really focus on as far as team is our breaching equipment. Everybody isn't necessarily a heavy breacher, but everybody on the team usually will carry some kind of breaching equipment, whether that's bolt cutters, a ram, a hammer, a pry bar. Personally, I carry a breaching shotgun. So at this time, I need to make sure that breaching shotgun is good to go. So facing a safe direction, I'm going to produce that breaching shotgun. I'm going to remove the chamber flag from inside the chamber and stow it. Once it's stowed, I'll put the action forward, and then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to start loading breaching rounds into the magazine of this weapon. Some SOPs on some teams require team members to have a round loaded in the chambers, others don't. Personally, I like to just leave my breaching rounds in my tube. That way, if I need to load another round or a heavier round, I can do that and then lock that into the chamber. So with that being said, this weapon is ready to go. I will ensure that that safety mechanism is engaged and that this weapon is safe. And then I'm going to stow it back in its proper location. Breaching gear is done. Team gear is done. All of my personal protective equipment is done. I can now move on to my weapon systems, right? So we always start with our secondary weapon. First thing I want to do is, again, facing a safe direction, I'm going to go ahead and draw that secondary weapon and bring it up to target. What I'm doing here is I'm focusing on the reticle on the actual optic and making sure that the battery is good, the reticle's bright, everything's working the way it should. At this time, I want to activate my light. I want to make sure that that light source isn't washing away the reticle in my optic. I want to make sure that I can see that optic no matter how bright that light is. And I want to make sure that when the light's off, that reticle isn't overwashing the actual optic itself. So it's a little bit of a balance there. You got to kind of adjust your weapon to get that perfect balance. But once you have that done, and you've ensured that that light has batteries and that it's not going to die on you in the middle of a raid, you're going to go ahead and turn that light off, bring this weapon back into your workspace, lock the slide to the rear. Once the slide's been locked to the rear, we'll remove any kind of safety device that we have in the chamber. We'll stow it. And then we're going to take a magazine from our emergency reload pouch. I have the magazine, it goes into the magazine well, that slide goes forwards. At this time, I'm going to do a press check, but not just any ordinary press check. What I mean by that is I'm going to pull the slide back, I'm going to look inside and see that chamber and see that there's a shell casing inside that chamber, and I'm going to take my index finger of my fire control hand, and I'm actually going to touch that shell casing before letting that slide go forward. The reason I do this is because it may be dark. We may not have a lighted room that we're doing this in. This may be in a back alley somewhere as we're preparing to go to a call out or some situation. So if it's dark and I can't really see what's going on inside this chamber, I need to take my index finger and actually feel it and make sure that there's a round in there and that this weapon is in fact in battery. Once I know that's the case, I will come back on target, give that optic one last check, make sure the reticle is good to go, tap the back of the slide, make sure the weapon's in battery, and then I'm going to holster a loaded handgun. Now we're going to move on to our primary weapon. In my situation, I use a carbine as my primary weapon. So at this time, I'm going to bring my primary weapon up on target. And just like the secondary weapon, we're going to do pretty much the same procedure here. I'm going to make sure that the optic is charged, that there's batteries inside of it. I'm going to make sure that the reticle isn't washing away any sight picture inside there. Okay, if I'm happy with that, I'm going to move down to my laser. I'm going to remove caps and turn that laser on. And I'm going to check the laser. I'm going to make sure that that laser is bright, make sure that it has batteries, make sure that everything's working the way it should be before moving on to my light. So at this time, I'll check my light. I'll turn my light on, again, making sure that the light source isn't washing away the reticle on my optic and that the light is actually fully charged, batteries inside. Last thing we want is our light to go out while we're on target. If I'm satisfied with the systems of this weapon, I'm going to go ahead and gas it up. So what I want to do is bring this weapon to a retention position. I'm going to lock that bolt to the rear. I'm going to remove that chamber flag and stow it. With the chamber flag stowed, I will remove a magazine from my emergency reload pouch. Now, once I've done that, I want to look and take note of which side that ammunition is sitting on top of that magazine. By looking here and noticing that that round is on the left side of this magazine, I'll reach up with my index finger and I'll feel it and make sure it's all there. I'll make a note of that. And then I'll slide this into my weapon with the push-pull method before allowing that bolt to fall forward. Once that bolt has returned home, I will remove that magazine one more time and I will check the top of the magazine to make sure that the ammunition has in fact shifted to the other side. What this tells me is that without doing a press check on this weapon, I know that there is a round in that chamber and this weapon is in battery. Okay, and the reason that we feel it again is because if it's dark out and we can't see at night, I need to make sure that I can identify that there's a round on the opposite side of that magazine. Push pull back into the magazine well after we're satisfied, and I'm going to reach around, I'm going to close that dust cap cover. The reason I close the dust cap cover is because that is just an extra amount of insurance letting me know that this weapon is ready to go. If for some reason that bolt is egregiously out of battery, that dust cap cover will not close. So I'll reach around, I'll cover that dust cap cover, and this weapon now is ready to go. Once that's happened, I will go ahead and adjust my sling. I'll get the retention where I need it to be to make sure this weapon can move around, and I'll go to a front sling. So at this time, I have personal protective equipment. I have my team equipment all secured. I have my secondary weapon ready to go, my primary weapon to go. There is without a doubt that I am ready to step off. The last thing I want to do before I do so is replace any magazine pouches that I drew wet ammunition from. So with that being said, I will replace that secondary ammunition source, and I'm going to replace that primary ammunition source so that if I need to reload, I can move to my emergency reload pouches and the ammunition I need will be there. Now, final check before we step off. I will start at the top. I will work my way down, making sure everything is where it needs to be, all the way down to my shoelaces to make sure that they're tied, they're not loose, nothing's going to come unraveled while we're working. And I can confidently now step off onto that infill platform and head on to target without having to worry about batteries being low, ammunition being in my weapon. These are problems that you don't want to deal with when you're stepping off onto a mission. Last thing I want to be thinking about when I should be concentrating on what I'm going to be doing when I get there is wondering if I properly charged my ammunition or if I properly charged the batteries inside my light. All this needs to be figured out before we step off. Again, this is our make ready procedure. It's our ritual before battle. This is what we do to make sure that we are, in fact, confidently, physically, and mentally ready to do the task at hand. Thanks again for watching. My name's Clint from Marauder Tactical Group. If you're interested in more information or more training like you've seen today, go ahead and give us a follow. Check us out online, maraudertacticalgroup.com. We have plenty of classes offered. Hit us up, check us out. Thanks again for watching. See you later.